Hi everybody, welcome to Unit 3 of our course. In this video, I'm going to go over the major or portfolio assignment for the third unit of the course, as well as the process work that leads up to it. As always, be sure to refer to the modules and the schedule of activities to have a complete accounting of all of the participation and process work for the unit, as well as when things are due. So this video is mainly going to go over the big project for the unit and the parts of the project that you'll do as you go through the unit. So Unit 3 is all about finding, evaluating, citing, and using sources in your research. So hopefully by the end of the unit, you'll be able to do all of those things. We are going to show this by doing what we call a source exploration project. So basically, what I'm trying to recreate here is a local news roundup type thing. You might have seen on the news or heard one on the radio at some point, where basically what they do is they gather together several journalists and they talk about the biggest stories in the news for the week, and they explain what's going on for an audience who may not necessarily have been paying attention to the news all week or may not be familiar with a particular story in the news. So that's the vibe that I'm trying to recreate with this project here. So what you're going to do as the student is you're going to first pick a topic of local importance. So in the module, you'll see links to lots of different local news organizations, and hopefully you'll become familiar with some of these local news organizations through this project if you weren't already. So it's easy to find national news, right? There's the Associated Press, there's newspapers like USA Today and the New York Times, there's the broadcast networks like Fox News and MSNBC and CNN. There's no shortage of ways to find information in the national news, I feel like. There's also plenty of local news out there as well. And so what I really want you to do through this project is, one, become familiar with some of the sources for local news, and two, become a little bit familiar with some of the issues in this community, in the Midlands and in the Columbia area that people are talking about and people are concerned about, because those don't necessarily get as much coverage as, say, a big national news event like a war or some kind of financial crisis or something like that. So that's what we'll be doing, is you've got to first choose an issue of local importance. In the module, you will find plenty of links to local news organizations, and I just encourage you to click on those links and look through and see what people are talking about. If you want to find a really good topic, my advice, and this is explained here in the verbiage of the project, my advice is to look at things like that media organizations' social media, their news and their opinion sections, anything that seems like people are writing about either in like the editorials and the opinions, or people are commenting on social media a whole lot. Anything along those lines is probably something that's going to be a good topic, because it shows that, one, people in the community are pretty passionate about that topic, and two, that news organization feels like it's a really important issue as well. So look for that as kind of advice. And of course, you can always bounce topic ideas off of me. You can always lean on the librarians or an ASC or tutor.com tutor for help choosing a topic as well. But that's the first step, is choosing a topic that's of some local importance. So that's the key here. It's got to be local. It's got to be something that is affecting people locally, okay? So again, you can always reach out to me for more advice or more guidance on picking a specific topic, but that's really an important thing to keep in mind. At the end of the unit, what you are going to do is you're going to, first of all, create an annotated bibliography of your sources after you pick your sources. And then you're going to use those sources to explain the topic for an audience in our local news forum. So one important thing to keep in mind about the source exploration project is that the final iteration of this project, the final draft, if you will, you're not going to turn anything into the Dropbox for this. So if you don't see a Dropbox that says source exploration project, don't freak out, okay? Because what we're going to do to earn your grade for this is you're going to participate in the local news roundup forum. Depending on what course you're in, it might be in class, it might be in the discussions area, but I'll point everybody very specifically and very clearly to where you go to do that. But just know that you're earning your grade by participating in the forum, and I'll have a series of questions about that topic for you to answer for your audience that you'll do in the forum. Instead of turning in like a document to the Dropbox, you won't be doing that. So that's basically what we'll be doing by the end of the unit, is the local news roundup forum based on your sources and based on the topics that you picked. The process work leading up to it. So one thing you have to do before we do our forum is you have to collect your sources and create a bibliography of sources, okay? So I want you to show me that you understand MLA citation format by creating a bibliography here. So you collect your sources, you'll put them together in an MLA bibliography. And so that's a document that you'll submit to the Dropbox. And then another thing that you'll do is I want you to annotate one of those sources. So an annotated bibliography, if you've never done one of these before, is basically a bibliography of your sources annotated with information about that source. So it might summarize it so that the audience doesn't have to read the entire source to get an understanding of what that source is about and its main points. It might evaluate it, explain why the author or the publishing organization is credible. It might evaluate it in terms of how useful it is, in terms of currency, how recently it was published, how relevant it is to your research question, anything like that. So an annotated bibliography is basically a bibliography annotated with usually summaries and evaluations of the source. Now, I do not want you to type your annotations for this. What I want you to do is I want you to create a screencast recording where you show me how you evaluated the source. Okay, so you'll use a screencast recording software like I am right now. I'm using a program called Screencast-O-Matic, but a very easy way to do this is to just start a Zoom meeting and start recording your screen and use your Zoom recording as your screencast recording. And there's instructions in the links about how to do that if you need help with that. Please reach out to me if you also need help with how to create a screencast recording. But just like I'm creating a screencast recording now, introducing the unit to you all, you'll create a screencast recording where you evaluate the source. So you'll pull up one of your sources on your screen, and in your recording, you're just going to say, oh, hey, here's the author, and maybe I click on the link to their bio, and this is what I learned about the awards that they've won and why they're credible. This is the other things that they've written about this topic and all that stuff. Oh, here's the information. Let me click on this and show you the information about the publishing organization, and they have an audience that is this big. So they have a really big audience, and that's why they're credible. So it's things like that. And I might, go through the screencast recording and say, okay, here's a really good example of how the writer uses a source by highlighting it, or use my mouse, highlight things, click on things, but just be very dynamic and interactive with the audience in terms of showing me how you evaluated the source. So you'll turn in a document with your bibliography and your screencast recording showing me how you evaluated the source. And then there's very specific information in here on how to do that. Leading up to that, we've got our toolkit work. So we'll start with the chapter 13 toolkit, and that is basically just choosing some sources, okay? So you'll look at the links to those local news organizations. You'll try to find an issue that's important locally, and you'll find at least a couple of sources to do your chapter 13 toolkit. Remember, these toolkits are scaffolding the major assignments, so it's the same sources that you're going to use in your source exploration project, okay? You'll fill out this little block here with what information have I found so far? What do I still need to learn about? Where am I likely to find that information? And no right or wrong answers, just your thoughts on your research process, basically. And then down here a little bit, choose at least two sources or find at least two sources. And you don't have to use these in the final version of the project if you don't want to. If you find that these aren't really relevant and you find better sources than that, then fine. Just engage in this exercise here where you're collecting information about the source in order to be able to compose your bibliography. So things like the author, title of source, title of container, etc. These are all of the things that you need to create an MLA bibliographic citation right here. Keep in mind, location is not like where it was published, like Columbia. It is a location URL, which I should probably update to make that a little bit clearer. But what they're looking for is either a URL or page numbers in most cases for location. All right. And again, it's just collecting information about the source. DOI, I want to point this out to y'all. This is often used in APA, and it's an electronic identifier for electronic database documents. They're not really used in MLA, and if your source, which is probably not likely to have one if it's like through a local news organization, doesn't have a DOI, it's fine if it doesn't have a DOI. Same thing with anything in here, like version and number is another example. Version and number are usually for printed periodicals. So if you're finding a source online, it's probably not going to have a version and number. So if it doesn't have it, then you don't have to include it. But it is important to know, hey, I understand from the stuff in the modules that this is a source that I found online. It's not a periodical, so it's not likely to have a version and numbers. That is important to know. But if it doesn't have those things, then like other contributors, for example, then you don't have to include those things. All right. And then just taking some notes, practicing paraphrasing and quoting from your source just a little bit. Again, no right or wrong answers here. I just want you to practice a direct quotation and a paraphrase from your source. So pretty simple and straightforward for chapter 13, I believe, and shouldn't take you all that long to do. And then the next one for chapter 14, we're going to continue on with this, and you're just going to practice a little bit using keywords, talking a little bit about your sources, and then evaluating your sources some, so that way you'll be well prepared to do your screencast video when you do your works cited for your source exploration project. All right, and this looks like a lot, but it's not really. It's basically just choosing a few sources and then filling in those blocks with a little bit of information about the source based on your reading of it, your evaluation of it, and your summary of it, so that you're prepared with those notes when you do your screencast recording. And so you can use everything in your Chapter 14 toolkit to do your screencast recording. The whole idea here, remember, is we're building on stepping stones a little bit, right? One step after the other. So keep that in mind. So you, by the time you do your screencast recording and you complete your bibliography, you've already found some sources. You've already jotted down information that you'll use to complete your bibliography. You've already done information and collected information you'll use to complete your summary and your evaluation. So that's the whole point here. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. I look forward to seeing your work in the unit.